What's going on, guys? Welcome to Hangs with Rog. Today we have Australian game developer Matt Kelly from Mokomoto Games talking to us about his game Molemen Must Die. Okay, Matt, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. My name's Matt Kelly. I run a company called Mokomoto. We're an independent games developer based in Australia, and I do all sorts of interesting, weird things on a daily basis.
Oh, sounds cool. And what sort of got you into the video game industry?
I had kind of like quite a convoluted entry into games. When I was leaving high school, I was like, oh, I want to be in film. You know, I want to. I think like this was on the back end of the Matrix trilogy, which I controversially love to death, despite everyone ever disagreeing with me. So I went and pursued film because I was fairly sure that's what I wanted to do. I was convinced I had all these great ideas for amazing blockbuster action films. But when I got to film school, I kind of realized I didn't like film. I had this collection of films that I enjoyed, like I said, The Matrix, Ghost in the Shell, the Evangelion films, whatever else. But ultimately, film wasn't something I was interested in. I could not be bothered stuffing around with a camera. Like, I enjoyed the editing process, but that was about it. And so I got out of that and went on to pursue games journalism at the time with the now defunct My Media Games Network, which was cool, and I enjoyed that for a while. But every time I did an interview with a developer, I found myself increasingly asking these kind of questions that, unless you're actually making games, no one is particularly interested in. Like, how does the rendering work on that, or how are you generating that kind of content or effect in your UI? Like all these kind of questions that no one in their right mind playing games wants to know the answer to, because they're not very exciting answers. But to me, they were. And ultimately, I realized, that's what I wanted to be doing. Like, I literally spend so much of my life playing games. Like, why aren't I involved in it? So after a while, I returned to uni to study games, and as a designer, also picked up a lot of programming along the way, and that's kind of where it went.
Very cool, very cool. What did you do after you finished your degree?
From there, I went on to. I was actually very lucky to pick up a. It was only a short contract, but it was a contract with a company called Kickside. They're based up in Brisbane, in Australia, working on Vega Conflict, which is their Facebook real-time strategy game, and it was really cool. Like, it was. I was working as a UI scripter, so it was my job to basically write all the behind-the-scenes language of, how the UI should lay out, and, what should happen when you hover over a button and stuff like that. It wasn't the most exciting work, but it was a real eye-opening experience. I think there was maybe, let's say 20 to 30 people under that roof. This is compared to, student teams where, I think we worked at 6 or 8 people, just in that month there, trying to get to know, what everyone did and all the different facets of what was going on in that place. It was a real eye-opening moment to, just kind of how much game development is like a team sport in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and obviously you sort of transfer that into what you're doing now. So obviously you're working for yourself now at Mokomoto.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
tell us a little bit about how you go about making games.
Sure. So, I mean, for us, a lot of the tools and so the hard resources that we put to use aren't uncommon. Like, we're just using the Unity game engine that everyone, you can go download it right now if you wanted to. It's pretty common stuff that we're using. But we come from a very, like a very mechanically focused approach to the games. Like, I'd be lying if I said I could ever keep politics and philosophy out of what I'm working on. But we come at it from an angle of how can we use game mechanics to kind of explore those things that we're talking about, that we're interested in at the moment.
Yeah, sounds cool. So tell us a little bit more about your game.
So, Molemen Must Die is it's what I call a imprecise platformer. So, rather than, precise timing of jumps and all that kind of thing, we actually create a pretty crazy scenario of delivering a bomb to the center of the earth at the behest of your temper tantrum president, who has been insulted by the king of the Molemen in the underworld, and in no way has any relation to current politics or world leaders. For us, it's kind of about, the whole game is really about creating this chaotic situation with, like a incredible amount of enemies on screen that you're constantly trying to keep under control while escorting this bomb to the center of the earth, which unfortunately results in most of the earth being destroyed in the process. But that's fine. Again, no relation to current politics at all. It's really this insane crowd control game of endless tactical falling.
You were saying you drew a bit of inspiration from the Dead Rising series?
Yeah. So for us, it's always like people are always quite surprised when we talk about it, because like Dead Rising is like a big budget AAA game, great graphics, expansive world, all that kind of stuff. But those games ultimately aren't about killing everyone on the screen. They're about making a small path for yourself, or like making a small safe bit of ground that you can hold for a moment before moving on. And we've really tried to take like a lot of those principles and apply them to Molemen Must Die, where it's really there is never like a true resting moment, I guess you could say. There's moments where you might be in a mild amount of safety, but beyond that, it's very touch and go constantly.
Yeah, sounds cool, man. Where and when can people find your game?
So we'll be coming out next month, most likely. So we're still deep in development at the moment. And we should have a release date soon. But in the meantime, people can, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Crowded Worlds, and the company Twitter is at Mokomoto Games.
Very cool. And how long approximately do you think you've spent on this project?
So, it's always a bit of a messy number, because it's sort of like there's been a lot of stuff that's happened along the way alongside it. But, I think generally about 5 months. We've been, originally it was just me working on the project between things, and then I was very fortunate to have Lewis, our programmer, come on board. So he works in Melbourne. I work up here in the Gold Coast in Queensland. We communicate online most days, which is, always really. It's actually like been a very, very solid working environment for us. Sort of like I think quite often, it's the question of like, when are we going to get the office and all that kind of stuff. But this has actually worked really well for us, and certainly I don't know if we're in any rush to really, go rent anywhere after this. But yeah, so like, it's what would have probably initially taken like a year for me to get done, has been reduced to something like 5 months with, two of us working on the game as well.
Oh, do you have any sort of tips for someone who's thinking of starting out in the game industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I always have like such like my thoughts will always very much change based on who it is I'm talking to. Because there's all sorts of like skills that kind of translate into the games industry that people don't really think of. Like, you may be like a classical traditional painter or traditionalist painter. And you may not feel that, in the world of Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto that there's a place for you, but, there's plenty of indie games out there that would probably love someone with a fine arts background working on those projects and working on their art. Likewise, I had someone come to me who was, they worked as an accounts manager, and I'm just like, believe me, there's going to be someone in the games industry who would love to have a great accounts manager. And, but as for like making games, quite often I say just, start making bad games. Like, I think there's this urge straight off the bat to, make your it's very easy to get caught up in the awards and the hype of indie darlings coming out and all of that. But most of those people didn't start in that position. Most people, there's a company, a guy I was talking to the other day, whose company is, a major inspiration for mine. But looking at his work history, like, he's worked on like all sorts of bizarre things that no one has ever heard of and probably never will hear of. But then, with all those years of experience behind him, he's now gone on to, make these really, really great games. So for people out there who are considering getting into making games, just, don't get caught up in that. Just, make something that you're interested in, make it small, and make sure you release it. Make sure you actually put it out there for people to play. And even if people are like, oh, this is the worst thing ever, oh, how could you make this? This offends my soul. Like, stuff them. Like, ignore them. Just sit down and start making your next game, because at some point, you are going to become so good at just putting stuff out and just making games. A lot of these, these early difficulties are going to just become second nature to you, that one day you're going to find that you're actually making really great games that people love. And it all happened without you even realizing it.
That's some great advice, Mr. Kelly. Again,
oh,
I feel like I said that to you very, very recently. Just as a bit of sort of bonus content, I guess, tell us a little bit about where you're living at the moment.
So I live on top of a mountain in Queensland. I moved up here when I was figuring out about how to start the company and all of that. Like, I'm Melbourne based mostly, but I thought like a little time out would be nice, and I moved up here. And so where I live, it's actually at the top of a mountain in what I gather used to be a fairly plush resort until the main facilities of the place burnt down, as they do. So the whole place has been turned into these like super cheap little studio apartments with these like amazing views off the top of the mountain, and it's just hidden away up here. So it's sort of like a place to go in and focus on how to go about what you want to be doing for the next 5 years. It kind of lined up pretty nicely.
That sounds awesome. Well, thanks so much, Matt, for doing this. Can you please remind the people where they can find your stuff, where they can follow what you're up to these days?
Yeah, sure. So you can follow the company Mokomoto at Mokomoto Games. At Mokomoto Games, not the internet, though you can go to mokomoto.com. There's not much there right now. And you can follow me at Crowded Worlds on Twitter.